And we will actually illustrate that in terms of the report that we will be giving to South Africa about this Easter weekend. This year's Easter holidays came against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic, which led to a nationwide lockdown announced by the president. The consequence of this lockdown is the reduction of movement on our roads as prescribed by our directions. The reduction of vehicle movement on our roads is estimated to be at 70%, which actually answers the question that most of South Africans during this Easter weekend did obey the regulations. Equally, we release these statistics 2 days after a tragic road crash involving a minibus taxi and a truck in the Eastern Cape, which claimed 15 lives. I take this opportunity to send heartfelt condolences to the families and loved ones of the deceased. I also wish a speedy recovery to those injured in the collision. This accident sadly demonstrates willfully and dangerous disregard for our collective effort to preserve human life by obeying both the road and lockdown rules by some public transport operators. Although we have published directions that specifically limit the maximum number of passengers who may be transported in a taxi, the driver of the minibus involved in this collision ignored those directions. However, an investigation on the root cause of the crash is still underway, and the RTMC will release the findings once finalized. This crash happened outside of the Easter period, but the tragic loss of so many lives warrants our attention and intervention. The Easter period this year was defined as period starting on Thursday 9 April to Monday 13th of April. Our traffic law enforcement authorities had done extensive preparations for this period, which is ordinarily characterized by high traffic volumes, which places to places of pilgrimage and holidays. However, these plans were disrupted by the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic on our shores. This meant that schools had to close early, Easter pilgrimages cancelled, and a ban imposed on traveling between metros, districts and provinces. As you would have heard in the speaker, that nobody is still allowed to travel between Johannesburg and Citibank. Because of these measures, the number of vehicles dropped significantly over Easter period, as the majority of people stayed at home in compliance with the lockdown regulations. A reduction in traffic volumes also had a corresponding effect on the number of traffic violations. The number of drivers arrested for drunken driving was 11, while the number of drivers caught speeding stood at 1. This is in sharp contrast with 807 arrested for drunken driving and 192 for speeding in 192. However, any attempt to compare year-on-year figures will be an exercise in futility, as the material conditions this Easter are fundamentally different from a normal period where traffic is able to move freely. The total number of arrests for violation of road traffic laws stood at 719, while traffic law enforcement authorities meant 480 roadblocks. A total of 104,140 vehicles were stopped and checked at these roadblocks. The number of vehicles impounded was 236, with 171 vehicles discontinued due to unroadworthiness. Over the same period in 2019, the number of arrests for violation of road traffic laws was 1,343, with 141 roadblocks. The number of vehicles impounded was 1,555, while vehicles discontinued for unroadworthiness stood at 702. In addition to enforcing road traffic laws, authorities had to enforce the lockdown regulations and directions. As a consequence, 184 vehicles were stopped and ordered to return home for traveling in contravention of the lockdown regulations and directions. As at the end of the Easter weekend, 26 fatal crashes were recorded, which resulted in 28 fatalities. Most of the crashes involved pedestrians and single vehicles overturned, with contribution of 38% and 19% respectively. This is in contrast with the 128 crashes recorded over the same period in 2019, claiming 162 lives. Drivers constituted 42% of fatalities, followed by pedestrians at 31% and passengers at 27%. The 2020 Easter period was extraordinary, as there was limited movement. Despite the lockdown, there were those allowed to travel. The provincial breakdown of the 26 crashes is as follows. Mpumalanga account for 6 crashes, resulting in 7 fatalities. KwaZulu-Natal, 5 crashes, resulting in 6 fatalities. Eastern Cape, 5 crashes, resulting in 5 fatalities. Gauteng, 3 crashes, resulting in 3 fatalities. Western Cape, 3 crashes, resulting in 3 fatalities. Northwest, 3 crashes, resulting in 3 fatalities. Limpopo, 1 crash, resulting in 1 fatality. Free State is 0, and the Northern Cape. A number of major crashes recorded prior to Easter season were investigated by Road Traffic Management Corporation. A number of these investigations have since been completed. The investigation into a collision involving a Toyota Avanza and a Toyota Hi-Ace minibus on 11 March 2020 has been completed. The crash happened on the R553 Golden Highway in Gauteng, and it claimed 12 lives of scholars, including both drivers. The investigation concluded that the drive shaft of the minibus vehicle broke off, causing the driver to lose control of the vehicle. The finding is that this crash occurred as a result of the poor maintenance of the Toyota Hi-Ace minibus. The minibus was not roadworthy, and its license disc had expired 5 years earlier. In view of this, we have pressed for charges of culpable homicide. We'll further intensify our visibility on scholar transport. This will also include closer collaboration with the Department of Basic Education to ensure that no school allows children to be transported in unroadworthy vehicles. We will be introducing a new requirement that those involved in transporting scholars must, on quarterly basis, subject themselves to compliance tests and must submit a compliance certificate to the school. Our law enforcement authorities will subject scholar transport operators to heavy scrutiny and rigorously ensure compliance. We will ensure that all unroadworthy vehicles are impounded. We are currently consulting with MECs to increase impounded fee to a minimum of 10,000 for first-time offenders. On the 2nd of March 2020, a total of 25 people lost their lives when a bus carrying 98 occupants went down a steep slope in Kolweni near Kantani in the Eastern Cape. You will remember this accident like yesterday, where we conducted a mass funeral recently in the Eastern Cape. The investigation in this accident found that human error was the most likely root cause of the crash. The driver overtook a light delivery vehicle, and as he returned to the left of the road, he oversteered and lost control of the bus. The bus then left the gravel road, tipped over and slid down a slope. A full comprehensive mechanical investigation found no mechanical defects or failures in the bus. The road was found to be in a fair condition and not likely to have been the cause of the crash. The investigation further revealed that the certificate of roadworthiness of the bus had expired in December 2020, but it had continued operating in contravention of the law. Similarly, the license disc of the bus had expired, and the bus was therefore not supposed to be on the road. Our law enforcement will ensure compliance with road traffic laws and will put in place robust measures to ensure full compliance by all bus operators. Buses that fail to comply with these measures will be impounded and heavy penalties handed over on operators. A case of culpable homicide had been opened, and we will ask the court for harsher penalties. Had this bus not been on the road, this tragic accident will not have happened. We are forging ahead with our proposal to reclassify certain offences so that for this type of accident, those found culpable are charged with murder rather than culpable homicide. In January 2020, a driver and 5 passengers died in a bus crash on the R81 Gasegopo village in Limpopo. The investigation also found human error. The driver failed to engage a lower gear to enable safe traveling on the steep road. She subsequently lost control of the bus and it overturned. A full mechanical examination of the bus found no mechanical defects, and the road was found to be in good condition. On 16 June, 24 people were killed when a bus and a minibus were involved in a head-on collision on the R81 near Mapalle village in Limpopo. The investigation found that the road was in good condition and visibility was good when the crash occurred. The driver of the minibus was in a process of overtaking a barrier line when he crashed head-on with an oncoming vehicle. These reports demonstrate a blatant disregard of the rules of the road by some motorists with tragic consequences. All these crashes could have been avoided if the drivers conducted themselves responsibly. We would also like to reflect on the regulations that give effect to the lockdown. The disaster management regulations published by the Minister of Cooperative Governance, Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, remain in force and have been extended for the duration of the extended lockdown period. This extension includes the directions we have issued covering all modes of transport. Yesterday, Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma published amendments to these regulations to lay the foundation for the risk-adjusted measures that the President talked about in his address last week that will enable a phased recovery of the economy, allowing the return to operation of certain sectors under strictly controlled conditions. The amended regulations made it clear that the transportation of essential goods are permitted from warehousing sites to essential services providers. Cargo may be moved from ports of entry to warehousing sites where handling and clearing of cargo is conducted, with the exception of the transportation of liquor. And cargo may be transported to ports of entry for purposes of exporting. We specifically make provision for export of cargo to decongest the ports. Now that all cargo is allowed to move, we have to be alive to the practical implications of this, particularly the domino effect on the value chain. The unintended consequence of this movement is that inbound cargo gets stuck at port, as some businesses that are required to enable the movement of this cargo to their final destination are not operational during the lockdown, resulting in high storage costs for businesses. Our ports of entry are not designed to function as warehouses for inbound cargo, and then this creates a blockage at port. Similarly, Minister Zuma announced that stores selling hardware products and vehicle components may open but must maintain a register of persons buying essential goods listed in the regulations. There's been a complaint, not even a complaint, an issue raised by minibus taxis and all those who are operating about this particular matter. And now the regulations are actually catering for that. As part of this process, we have taken stock of the efficacy of the measures we have put in place to enable the lockdown. In extending the lockdown for a further 2 weeks, we have identified areas that pose unmitigated risk that require adjustment. In relation to movement of minibus taxis, our law enforcement counterparts flagged a critical challenge that once taxis complete their morning run between 5 to 10 a.m., these taxis park at the rank, resulting in a mass gathering of drivers at these ranks, which is prohibited. These taxis should be parked at places where they ordinarily park overnight, and drivers should return to their homes to avoid indirect gatherings. We will attend to this particular matter immediately. Our law enforcement efforts will continue to enforce the lockdown rules and ensure compliance by all road users. Enforcement of the rule of the road will continue in earnest in order to maintain law and order on our roads. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is now yours. Do you have any questions for the Minister? Any areas of clarification? Any concerns? Yes, Mangoba.
Okay, Minister Mangoba. But I think the question is what...
All right, that was the Transport Minister, Fikile Mbalula, there releasing the Easter fatality statistics. It's very difficult to compare year on year with regards to these statistics because there was movement, a restriction of movement. We understand that we have the visuals back of the minister. Let's go back there now.
Trains and so forth. I mean, we've seen trains from Soweto, the people hanging out of the trains literally. Will those regulations still stand even after the lockdown?
Thank you so much. Minister.
Palmolele from Jacaranda News. Could you please go into what is feeding into the idea of increasing the impound fee? Why do you guys think that's a great idea?
Come again?
The impound fee, why is increasing it important for?
Why is it important to increase the impound fee? Do we have another question, colleagues? Okay, so perhaps for this round, boss, you can take those two. We also, like I mentioned, we also have the management and the board chair of RTMC. So if there are any operational questions, they are happy to also take those and to address them. Welcome to our colleagues from newsroom, Suzoni Fine and Late. So those questions can be fielded by either the minister and or the chair or the CEO. Boss?
The reduction of the bloodbath, it is remains our concern. Not even a concern, is part of our program of action. You will know that from last year, the president launched the Safety on Our Roads campaign, and that campaign continues. Among others, this campaign is accompanied by focusing on the strengthening the law to enable our law enforcement officers on the ground to be in a position to have the necessary power to ensure that we bring to book those who break the law, and that we ensure that you sit down before you get into a taxi. So we've got to ensure that these regulations, among others, in terms of law enforcement on the road, are actually adhered to. You will remember that we launched the 365 days wire campaign, and that campaign continues. This year, we observed the enforcement of the lockdown in relation to the regulations on coronavirus, as it is reflected in the regulation. Numbers of our people deserve a good round of applause because they stayed at home and they obeyed the regulations. So we are not thumb-sucking when we say that there is no person on the road and everybody obeys the regulations. We are giving you statistical evidence that our people, motorists, and everyone else have been very much disciplined, and we applaud them for that. It shows that we are really taking the lockdown serious, and so on. Like they say in Zulu, kuko amahlongandlebe. There are always people who are getting out of the way even in difficult times. Those who want to see things with their eyes. We are saying the coronavirus is invincible. They say we want to see it. They get into the road. They get into accidents. They try their chances. The regulations are clear. You don't have to travel. It is closed down. It is locked down. But they take their chances. They fake permits. They do all of that. But this kind of people are not many. They are very few. It's a coterie of few people. As much as they get publicity, don't think that the rest of South Africa is not a law-abiding nation. Difficult as the lockdown it is, our people have kept it together. And they've been, following the restrictions as they've been promulgated over a period of time. So we thank people for that, and that is what accounts for the low numbers. There is no victory to claim out of that. Unfortunately, as a Minister of Transport, I cannot pray for decongestion on the road. It is my nightmare for many years to come, which we are dealing with road traffic management. As the economy grows, many people get jobs, everybody's got a car. And my strategic objective is to move goods and people off the road and basically move them on the trains over time. And that is why there is a talk of a speed train which is, among others, the things that we're basically considering. But thank you to everyone. Lockdown regulations will not be enforced going forward, as it will be directed by the President and the NCC. But for now, they will be. Of course, there are lessons that we need to take from lockdown with us as we accelerate service delivery. You would have seen that things are moving faster in the lockdown than in the normal period of our work. We want to carry on with that. I want to reiterate again, the people who are concerned with their car licenses and their driver's licenses, those licenses, I want to reiterate, that expired and been affected by the lockdown and the lockdown that is extended, you will get a reprieve from government. Meaning, we will not say to you, your car is unroadworthy. It is understandable that you are actually facing a challenge of the lockdown. We are also planning, in terms of the readjustment, the numbers of people who are going to be on queue immediately the lockdown eases going forward. And how are we going to deal with those numbers in all our centers throughout the country? Among others, we are expediting the online digital approach, in which people can get their licenses online and on time and faster. And that's what we are working on together with the RTMC. And when we are totally ready with that, and it is as efficient and so on, we'll be able to come back to you to introduce the measures we are taking in terms of the digital platforms. Why is important to reduce impound fee, to increase? It is important. We hope it will act as a deterrent. It should not be easy that you can get on the road with an unroadworthy vehicle and you just pay peanuts to get your car released, and that is it. It should actually be more than 10,000. You should actually, in my view, raise to 100,000. But we're looking at those going forward and raising this particular fee, because people must learn to obey the law. And if you disobey the law, you must pay the consequences. And the law must deduct from you to pay for those who abide for the rule of law in the country. So thank you very much. I think those were the questions.
Those were the questions. Thank you so much, Minister. Colleagues, any other questions? Okay. In the absence of those questions, we can get an update of the statistics and maybe a broad overview of what's been happening today. And thereafter, Boss, I'm going to ask you to wrap for us. And in your wrapping, Newsroom Africa has asked just for a highlight of the statistics. Again, the 26 collisions resulting in 28 deaths. Maybe we can do that as we wrap. And then we can do Nguni languages and Sesotho or Setswana for the SABC. But before we wrap and close, Chair, perhaps let's come to you.
No, just a quick update. As at 9:15, the officers have just given me the following information to pass on to you and the country at large. 18 arrests have been effected since this operation this morning until 9:15, Minister. And the breakdown of those arrests is as follows. 11 people have been arrested for failure to confine in compliance with the lockdown regulations. 1 taxi driver has been arrested for overload and attempting to bribe a police official. 4 persons were arrested for traveling cross-boundary without permits, and 1 of them being suspected as fraudulent. And 2 taxi drivers have been arrested for driving an overloaded taxis, and those 2 taxis have subsequently been impounded. In total, 18 people are currently being processed at the nearby police station as we speak. I have also been informed by the commanding officers that the statistics with regard to the arrests and whatever transpires from these operations will be updated on a 30-minute basis. And perhaps before your midday reports, I'll direct the CEO to then make the updated statistics available, because we do believe that it is information that we should share transparently with the general public. And of course, those people who've been arrested continue to have their constitutional rights, and we'll ensure that in the course of enforcing the law, people's rights are respected. But we're calling upon citizenry also to respect the rights of officers and acknowledge that they too are human beings who are worthy of constitutional protection. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair. Advova, do you have anything to contribute? You are covered. Okay. Thank you so much. With that, I'm going to ask the Minister to just quickly then reiterate the dates for us, and then give us a soundbite in isiZulu or siXhosa, Sesotho or Setswana.
I've been asked to repeat this. The 2020 Easter period was extraordinary, as there was limited movement. Despite the lockdown, there were those who were allowed to travel. The provincial breakdown of the 26 crashes is as follows. Mpumalanga, 6 crashes, resulting in 7 fatalities. KwaZulu-Natal, 5 crashes, resulting in 6 fatalities. Eastern Cape, 5 crashes, resulting in 5 fatalities. Gauteng, 3 crashes, resulting in 3 fatalities. Western Cape, 3 crashes, resulting in 3 fatalities. Northwest, 3 crashes, resulting in 3 fatalities. Limpopo, 1 crash, resulting in 1 fatality. Free State, 0, and Northern Cape, 0. So those are the statistics in relation to the breakdown province by province. That is for the Easter period in this past weekend. Just to wrap up, I think we have explained for this year 2020, the Easter weekend, which will be remembered for coronavirus, that the majority of our people and the motorists on the road did obey and abide by the regulations and stayed at home, and there were no chance takers. Those who did so were very few. But nonetheless, you can imagine, even during this period of lockdown, we have 28 people dead on the road. 28 people died even during the lockdown, and majority of which it is pedestrians. It is people who are moving on their own, and all statistics every year, even the past ones during December, will show that the majority of people who got involved in deaths, it is pedestrians. So our call continues that the people who are walking on foot must look after themselves and also obey the rules, because they constitute a high number of these fatalities. And others, it is reckless driving, where people get involved in accidents because of reckless driving. As you would have seen, as I conclude, that the accidents that take place, the bus in Kantani was due to reckless driving in terms of the report we got. As much as the road was in good condition, but it's not the road that you can afford to have the slightest mistake in terms of driving.
All right, that was the Minister of Transport, Fikile Mbalula. They're releasing the Easter fatality statistics. As we expected, the reduction in traffic volumes had a corresponding effect on the number of traffic violations. The number of drivers arrested for drunken driving was sitting at 11, while the number of drivers caught speeding stood at just one person. This is in sharp contrast with the 807 arrested for drunk driving and the 192 for speeding last year. Now, the total number of arrests for violations of road traffic law stood at 719, while traffic law enforcement authorities manned about 480 roadblocks. As we've been saying, it's difficult to compare year on year because of the reduction of movement. That's it for our SABC